Joined now by Florida Republican Senator Marco Rubio, member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee and also the Intelligence Committee. Senator, welcome. Good morning to you. Glad to have you with us again.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you.
So Max Baucus, a Democrat who also subsequently announced that he will be retiring from the Senate, he calls this health care bill, which he had a role in, he says it looks like a train wreck now. What do you think about all that?
Well, we've been saying that for a while. It's absolutely true. What we don't realize is that a lot of small and mid-sized companies across the country who don't have like a big human resources department are just now starting to encounter or figure out what this law is going to mean for them next year. And when they fully see what it means, it's going to have a devastating impact on the economy. I mean, if you're a small business that now figures out that next year you're going to have to completely restructure the way you provide health care for your employees, you're going to decide not to hire new people. You're going to hold back. I don't think we've even begun to see the worst yet with regards to the chaos that this is going to create.
Well, as you point out, you and a lot of other folks have been saying this for a long time, but now you have, prominent Democrats as well as Kathleen Sebelius at HHS saying, it's a lot more complicated and working it out is going to take some time. Is it incumbent upon the president to come out and to address this? Because there are a lot of folks across the country who are nervous about what they're supposed to do with all this.
Absolutely. Not only that, I think it's actually wise to suspend implementation, to come back and say, look, this thing is going to have a dramatic impact on our economy. Our economy is not growing. This is the last thing we need to do is inject some new uncertainty into it and disrupt it. And so I think we should actually suspend implementation of Obamacare. Obviously, I want to repeal the whole thing, but I think the president should step up and say we're going to suspend it at a minimum.
How likely? I don't think that's very likely to you.
Well, then the economy's not going to do very well. In fact, it's going to continue to get worse, and he'll have to answer for that. And I really honestly believe we should repeal the whole thing and start from scratch, addressing our health insurance problems, but not the way they've done. The impact this is going to have on our economy is terrible.
Let's talk a little bit about immigration, which obviously has been something that you've worked very hard on for years, really. And I want to show you a quote from a Politico story this week, which claimed that if indeed the Gang of Eight plan, which you've been a part of, were to pass, that it would actually be what they call a bonanza for Democrats. Take a look at this quote. It says that it would pump as many as 11 million new Hispanic voters into the electorate a decade from now, in ways that, if current trends hold, would produce an electoral bonanza for Democrats and cripple Republican prospects in many states that they now win easily. That wouldn't be so good for you and your side.
Well, first of all, I think it's a sensational headline. The reality of it is that 11 million, not all 11 million are Hispanics. That in and of itself is a misnomer. That being said, let me explain something. First of all, I don't agree with the premise of that story. And second, I would say, yes, it's true. We're not doing very well right now, not just among Hispanics, but among a sector of the population that doesn't fully understand what conservatism is about. But politics is always about convincing people who don't agree with you to agree with you, to convince them that what you stand for is better for them and for their lives than what the other side is offering. And I would say to you that with or without immigration reform, that is a real challenge that we conservatives must confront and do well with. And if we don't, then conservatism is going to struggle to succeed in America. I honestly believe the immigration reform issue for me is not a politically motivated one. It's motivated by a very simple fact. What we have today is chaos. We have de facto amnesty. We have an immigration system that's not good for this country. It's very bad for this country, and it needs to be fixed. And I'm just trying to figure out a way to fix it. I think we've come up with a decent starting point, a very good one, and I hope to be able to improve upon it. And I'm looking for ways to make it even better. But I can tell you, leaving it the way it is right now is crazy. It is bad for our country.
It's also led in some ways to an asylum system that allowed public benefits to flow to the family of these Boston bombers we now know. One of the issues that has been brought up is this student visa issue. And you opened the door to perhaps not allowing Muslim students to receive student visas in this country. Did you mean that? 24 hours later.
Well, first of all, yeah, because let me explain to you why. We have to get some proper perspective here. No one has a right to immigrate to the United States. No one has a right to visit the United States, and no one has a right to get a visa to study in the United States. There's no right to do that. The reason why we do it is because not only is it our nature as a nation, but we've concluded that it's good for our country. This is the kind of country we want to be. But that allows us to put any restrictions that we want on these programs, including restrictions on national security. I'm not singling out anyone per se. I'm just saying to you that if there are indicators that people are coming from parts of the world where there are dangerous people living and plotting against us, that should be a factor in determining whether we allow people to come here from there or not. And I certainly think that that's one of the lessons that we should try to learn from this horrible tragedy in Boston and apply it, whether it's to immigration reform or some other bill that we pass.
I got to squeeze
the number
in
one job of the federal government is national security.
One more quick question that I would be remiss not to ask you because you're on the Intel Committee. Do you have confidence in our intelligence services, based on the fact that they seem to have let Tamerlan slip through their fingers, that they would be able to pick up on people who should not receive a student visa accurately and efficiently?
Let me tell you, we have great men and women who serve us in the intelligence community, and it is never going to be 100%. But I certainly think there are a lot of questions that need to be answered about why it is that we did not continue with the investigation of this individual, particularly after we got the tip from the Russians, and then he traveled back to Russia and spent 6 months there. I think that, obviously, in hindsight, is something that we need to learn from and make sure it never happens again.
Senator Rubio, always good to have you here. Thank you very much, sir. We'll speak to you soon. Take care.